In this episode, I had the pleasure of speaking with a true business boss, Gwendolyn Young. Gwendolyn left a more than 15-year career advising corporate executives to start her own company so she'd have the freedom to manage her lupus condition. Now at the helm of your virtual admin expert, a multi-six-figure results-driven agency of professional administrative problem solvers, she brings her full spectrum of expertise to lead the company's and client success. Backed by know-how, her high-level education in organizational leadership and business information systems, along with a pure passion for people, Gwendolyn is a recognized authority in her industry and a champion who lifts others as she climbs. Welcome to the show, Gwendolyn.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for coming on to the show. So you have a very impressive background, but I want folks to hear from you who you are and what you represent. So why don't you tell the audience about yourself?
Yes, so I am Gwendolyn Young. I'm the CEO and founder of Your Virtual Admin Expert, which is an online business management and virtual assistant agency working with multiple 6- and 7-figure service providers, professional coaches, and consultants. And we work with them on all of the things in the back end, helping them to streamline their operations, increase their productivity, and of course, increase the bottom line. So I'm super excited to be here with you today.
Me too, because good help is hard to find. So
Yes.
when you came across my path, I said, all right, let's do this.
Yes.
Yes. So what inspired you to create your virtual admin expert?
Oh, that is such a great question. And believe it or not, I had no desire to be an entrepreneur. Nobody ever believes me when I tell them that today.
Wow.
Yes,
Okay.
that
Okay.
was not my dream. My dream was to be the girl to crush the glass ceiling in corporate America with the beautiful corner office. Like that was my thing. And so
You
I've
ain't, you
been
ain't
working.
missing. You ain't missing.
Yes. I had been working in corporate America for about nearly 2 decades, and in 2013, I got a diagnosis of systemic lupus.
Mm,
And so that altered life for me quite a bit. First of all, because
mhm.
I didn't even know what lupus was. And so that started this journey of healing and really trying to recover and figure out what was happening with my body. And during that time, I just told my husband, I'm like, I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back. I don't think that I should have to
Yeah.
choose between taking care of myself and
Yeah.
doing the work that I love. And I remember just saying, God, what am I supposed to do? And I heard him say, it's in your hands. And I'm like, what does that
Mm.
mean? Right? What does that mean? And I'm like, are there really people that need administrative support and background support in the virtual space? And I just started researching and found there was this entire industry, virtual assistant industry, that had been here for decades. And I was like, people have been doing this entire time and nobody thought it was important enough to tell me this. And like that literally was the birth of Your Virtual Admin Expert. I went heads down working. I put up all the job profile sites on the Upworks and the Odesk and everything and made a
Yeah.
makeshift website myself and started telling people this is what I do. And then 6 months later, I don't count my mom. My mom was my first paying client, but I'm like, my mom is gonna support everything that I do. So
Yep.
I'm like, I can't count you in the stats, lady, because that's like a given. But my first paying client, who was a non-family member, took about 6 months.
Yeah.
And it was a lady in Florida, and we got on and we connected, and she was like, yeah, I definitely want to work with you. And I was like, oh, this is a thing, right? So then I started working with her and she was like, do you travel? And I'm like, do you pay to travel? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, well, then I travel.
I never
Turning down
said.
free
I
travel.
never said.
And I remember going down there. I told my husband, I'm like, you're going to have to take the weekend off because like, I don't know this lady from a can of paint. Like we literally have just
Yeah.
met on the internet. I don't know if she's going to get me down to Florida and then I'm going to like never come back. So like, you got to go with me.
Yeah.
And, you know, got there to Florida, spent the weekend supporting her in her mastermind for the weekend. And it was the first time I saw somebody make thousands of dollars in a matter of 30 minutes.
Mhm.
And I was just like, what just happened here? And I was like, oh, this can be a thing. And she started referring her colleagues and they started referring their colleagues. And I was like, oh, I'm on to something here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So let me ask you this. I know because you had mentioned your diagnosis regarding lupus, and I hope this comes across the right way, but there's always that statement that things happen for a reason. There's, in negativity, there could be like some blessings. Like if you think
Yes.
about it, you would
Yes.
still never have known had you not had the diagnosis. Not to say that that had to go had to go that route, but
Yes.
how do you look back on that now, thinking about where you were, the situation, and now where you are now?
Yeah. I think it was divine. And I know people are like, what?
I
But
know.
I really do think it was divine, right? Because I think it was God's way of shaking me out of that place
Yeah.
because he knew I would never leave corporate America on my own, right? That's not
Mm,
something I would have ever
yeah,
done. And so
yeah.
I think it had to be this, let me get you out of that element and really kind of get you alone and consecrate you to remind you of who's really your source, right?
I love
And
that. Yeah.
so to me, it was really a blessing because I went through like this full year of recovery. I had several years of like hospital visits in and out and all of that.
Mhm.
I went from 14 medications a day to be functional down to 2. And so,
Wow.
yeah, yeah. So I could see God's hand all through that. And I think it was divine. It was like, I got to do something drastic because this child is not going to listen unless it's something drastic and over the top that really catches her attention,
Yep.
right?
Yep,
That
yep,
did it.
yep.
That was like,
Yeah.
whoa.
Trust me,
I think
I've
it
been
was
there.
a blessing in disguise
Yeah.
because now I am literally the person that's probably unemployable, right? Because I'm going to be like, you want to have a meeting at what's on? Like, you, I got to get fully dressed.
Are
Like,
you telling me I can't have business upstairs and party at the bottom?
right. Like, yeah, you don't get to talk to me that way. So it's
Yeah.
like my mindset is so completely different, but my faith is also strengthened at the same time.
I love that. I love that so
Yeah.
much. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You
Yes.
know, when I want to dig a little bit more into your business. So, when or how do people know it's time to hire a virtual admin expert like yourself? Because as someone who's type A, I'm willing to say that. Okay, I'm trying to work on it. But as someone who's type A, when would you believe is the time that I need to hire someone like yourself?
Yeah, that is a great question. And you are amongst company, fellow
All
type A.
right, type A team.
Fellow type A, so I totally get it. But when you are starting to really feel that overwhelm,
Mhm.
when you constantly things are piling up on your plate and you don't know how you're going to find the time to do them, when your inbox is overflowing and you're trying to get back to people as quick as you can, but something is still or somebody's still falling through the loops, when you are missing out on opportunities because you can't say yes because you're so bogged down with trying to figure out the day-to-day stuff, then it's time for you to get an assistant. When you find yourself like doing all of the things that are not making you any money and missing out
Mhm.
on those opportunities that could be making you money, it's time to get an assistant, right? And here's the other side to that that a lot of people don't think about. When you start to hear those complaints or concerns from your family, from your
Mhm.
kids that, oh, you're working all the time. Are you going to make my game today? Are you going to be able to do this? Are you going to be able to do that? You've got to take a step back to see what's the real priority here, right?
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong, there's seasons where life is going to require a little bit more of us than business, and business is going to require a little bit more of us from life.
Mhm.
But if you're finding that that is always your norm, you need some support.
That makes perfect sense. I've definitely found myself in some seasons where I'm like burning both ends of the candle, but I just keep thinking, well, you just got one more task, one more. And
Yes.
to your point, you know what? There's only 24 hours in a day. It's at a certain point, you're just going to end up falling out. So that makes perfect sense what you said. So, with that said, what responsibility is typically the hardest ones for your clients to delegate?
Oh my goodness. Control of their calendar is a huge one. Control of
Okay,
their
I
calendar.
can see
Do
that.
you just took a deep breath right
Oh
there?
my goodness. I was just like, "Oh, wait a minute. I don't know. Oh, yeah. That would hurt me too. I get it.
Control of their calendar is like the biggest one that we run into. The
Mhm.
second biggest one is giving access to any like financial information.
Ooh, I could see that. I
That
could see
those
that.
are two of the ones that are like, wait a minute, you want somebody else to have control over my time? Like I want to say yes to that person, and they're gonna say no because when they look at my schedule, the space doesn't allow for it. But I would typically
Mm,
figure out a way to just push through and put them in there somehow.
yeah.
Those are the two biggest things because they fear that if I give up my time, and I'll tell you something that a client said to me. She's like, they're gonna be upset with me if they now have to come to you to schedule my time versus coming to me. And I don't like that because I would make the time for them.
Ooh, I could see that yes, I could see that. But at the same time, I feel like it would be liberating because it's not
Yes,
necessarily you saying no.
exactly.
It's having that distance in between because sometimes it can be very difficult, especially if that person that wants time in the calendar is a family member or,
Yes.
a close friend or someone that,
Yeah, or
is
a colleague that
open.
you're always making concessions for, and then when they no longer have that liberty to just come directly to you, and there's another person who's gatekeeping your time, yeah, I'm like, they're gonna be a little bit upset, but guess what? They're going to adapt.
Yeah,
They're
I could
going to
see that.
adapt. They're used to you saying yes. So
That's
now
true.
when we come in and we say, "Oh, no, she's not taking calls before 10 a.m." Or no, she doesn't have that space available, right?
Mhm.
Because we're not just looking at the appointments that you need to take. We're also trying to consider and factor in what are those life things or what are those other goals that you have, right? Maybe it's a novel that you're working on and you need to make sure you block out space to write. If you keep overriding that slot and letting people into it, you're never going to get done
Oof.
with the writing, right?
Yeah,
If you
that
know that you need to be
that's true.
selling and working on relationships, but you keep letting team members who have non-emergent things get on your calendar, 30 minutes here, 30 minutes there,
It
guess
adds up.
what? You've gone the day without focusing on some of the most important things in your business, which is generating revenue.
Feel like you're attacking me, but that's okay. It's
I love you though. I love you.
I know. It just yeah, it kinda hurts. But yeah, no, that does make sense. That makes sense. Yeah, you got me food for thought, everyone. Food for thought, especially
Yeah.
for us type A folks. Uh, so what are some strategies, you work with so many different companies and people. Like, what are some strategies that you've seen that entrepreneurs can use to scale their businesses while staying true to their values?
Ooh. That is so good, and I feel like that is such a loaded question, but it's such an important one. The very first thing I always say to clients is, "Let's make sure we understand what your values actually are," right?
Mhm.
Because sometimes you'll tell me your values, but then you're operating out
I
of
get
alignment with those
yeah,
values, and so you're causing confusion with not just yourself, but with the people around you who
yeah.
are supposed to either work with you in alignment with those values or who are supposed to honor those values. They're confused,
Mm,
right? So the first thing we have to do is sit down and say, "What are the values?" What's important? And
Mhm.
then let's talk through what are the negotiables and what are the non-negotiables, right?
Yeah.
That's going to be super important because if we know where the non-negotiables are, it makes it easy to say no and yes to whatever the decisions are that come up. It makes it easy to say no or yes to whoever the people are that ask us for something, right? So that's going to be super important. So once we establish the values, once we establish the negotiables and non-negotiables, now let's talk about what the goals actually are. What do you want to what are you trying to accomplish in 30, 60, 90 days in the whole year? Because
Mm.
now once we have that, growing and scaling becomes easy because you understand what the focus is and every decision leads up to that. So if I know that my larger goal is to get visibility, let's just use that as an
Sure.
example,
Sure. Yeah.
right? I'm going to say yes to the opportunities that present themselves to increase that visibility. If you ask me to do something that is not in alignment with that, I'm not going to say yes because it's not helping me to accomplish the overall goal. It's going to get me stuck into something that I shouldn't be focused on.
Good
And a
point.
lot of times, what I see with a lot of my business owners, I like to call it the shiny object syndrome. That happens not just with software and systems and platforms, it
Mhm.
happens with processes, it
Mhm.
happens with strategies. Oh, so and so is doing X, Y, and Z. We should try that. So and so said they're using X, Y, and Z. We should try that. Oh, I went to a conference and they were doing this, and I think it'll be good if we do that. How does that help you in relation to what your goal is?
Good point. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you have to be firm in that. That's where it's gonna start, and then building the team that's gonna support you in getting there.
I love
Oh,
that.
I'm just gonna hire this person. Imma go on Fiverr because, they could do this for me real quick. But they have no idea how that fits into the big scheme of your brand. They have
Yeah.
no idea of how that fits into the scope of your goals. They have no idea of how that fits into relation of whatever other projects that you have working on in your business.
You know what? It's so funny you just brought up Fiverr. I gotta piggyback off of that. How does someone such as your company view kind of those sites like Fiverr and Upwork, because there are a lot of people that use those particular sites, and to your point,
Absolutely.
I'm being honest, I am one of them, um, but to your point, it's almost like you kinda get what you pay for as well,
And here's the
and,
thing,
yeah, I
I'm
was
one
just
of them
curious.
too.
Okay.
My entire like, this whole thing that I started, Upwork was one of the first sites we're on. My profile is still very active to this day. I will never take it down because it is a great lead generator for me,
Ooh,
right?
okay, okay,
So
yes,
I
I can
will
see that.
never take it down. I'm not saying that there's not value in those folks because there are. We use them sometimes for projects in our own business.
Yeah, okay,
It's the
okay,
way that you use them. When you try to lean on them to fill a role that is super core to your business or getting to your goal, I
ah,
think that's where you go
okay,
wrong. If
yes,
you've got quick projects or tasks that you need to be completed and you find an expert that can do that for you, absolutely do that,
yeah,
right? It's in how we use them and knowing what we're trying to fulfill within our business when we go looking for them, right?
perfect, perfect, yeah,
I
I
had
was
a
just
like my
curious.
first client found me on Upwork.
Yeah, one of my first clients found me on Fiverr. So,
Yes,
yeah, to your point, you kinda have to, yeah, to your point, you definitely have to figure out when to use them, but I've also noticed too, sometimes you do get what you pay for, like, you're
oh,
thinking,
absolutely.
"Oh, oh, okay, that's a great deal," and then you're like, "Okay, you know what? That turned out to be a lot more expensive than what I thought it was gonna be. I should have just paid for what I deep down
Absolutely.
knew would have been the price in the first place." So, yeah, I completely understand. I was just curious
Yes.
how you combat that. So,
Oh, absolutely. Because like, so for example, sometimes we'll have clients who are like, I just need, I have this large research project, right? Cool. I'm gonna
mhm,
go find me a researcher on Upwork. I'm not gonna have one of my admin experts, if it's a really big project, have them take away from your day-to-day operations
yeah,
to focus on research when I can go pay somebody to just
to
go
do it.
search and scour the internet all day. right? That may be a strategy that we use. If we have spreadsheets where there's a lot of data entry, right? We may go have somebody become a short part of the team for that project to do all of the
Gotcha.
data entry, and then we're done. So there's a lot of value in that. You'll go on Upwork and you'll still find me today. And I still use it as a lead generator because people
That's
will
awesome.
find me and then they'll go search for me on the internet and they'll find my website and then they'll connect with me that way.
I love
I'm
that.
never taking it down.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, so fun fact, I do voiceover work part-time. So
Ooh.
yeah, so I got my start on Fiverr, and then people were finding me, and like now all of my work is like through referrals. Like I'm doing stuff with
Yes.
Devoutly, and like that's a whole other thing. But I totally understand what you're talking about. Using those sites as a lead generator,
Yes.
and then making sure that you foster those relationships. I love
Yes.
that. That is very smart.
Absolutely.
Love it.
I will never everybody tells I will never take it down. That
I
site was
love it.
good to me, brought me a lot of business, made
Mhm.
like 200K off of Upwork. I will never take it down. I love
Mm.
Upwork. I sing its praises. I hear people all the time like, "You can't find good jobs and you're competing with the people overseas."
Mhm.
And I'm like, "But you're not competing."
I love that you said that. It's not when people say that it's competing, first of all, you don't have a unique selling proposition,
Yes.
right? So when you're sitting up here saying, "Oh, you're competing with folks overseas," there is so much that you bring to the table that the folks overseas
Absolutely.
could never touch. So
Absolutely.
it kind of always makes me laugh. I know what people mean when they ask that question, but mm, you got to dig a little
Yeah.
deeper, right?
And you're not like, I'm never focused on how I look going up against the other person. I am more focused on how am I positioning myself to the person I wanna work with,
I love that.
right?
Yep. Right.
How am I
Yep. Yep. Yep.
highlighting my skill set and my value so that they
Mhm.
themselves can see the difference? And if they can't, how I can create that for them, right? Like, how do I communicate that to them so they can see it? I'm not competing with them.
Yeah. Yeah. I
There's no
love that. And plus,
competition.
I tell people this all the time. When you compete on price, that's a race to the bottom anyway. You know what I mean? Like
And if we competing on price, don't even look for me. I'm
exactly.
not your person.
I definitely am not your person, especially when I've seen some of the rates and I'm like, how are you pulling that off? How are you pulling that off? So I tell people
No,
that all the time. I tell people that all the time. Just keep looking. Hey, not everyone's meant to be in our world.
that
And
part.
I wish you well.
Yes, and there's enough out here. I just believe that there's enough work out here for all of us,
I
right?
agree. Yes.
There's enough work out here for all of us, and there's so many different things to
Mhm.
look at, right? And I tell business owners, you're not just going off a price. Like, there has to be a personality chemistry fit. There has to be
Exactly.
a work ethic fit, right? People
Mhm.
have to be able to be step in step and understand how you work. There's responsiveness, there's communication. There's so many different elements. We're not even going to talk about skill set, right?
Oh, yeah.
There's so
True.
many different things that go into that. You can't base it just off of price.
Yes. Yes.
I can
Wholeheartedly
guarantee
agree.
you will be disappointed if you
Yes.
do that.
Exactly. Wholeheartedly agree. You've worked with so many different companies, entrepreneurs. What's been the most rewarding compliment that you've ever received from a client?
Oh my god.
I know you probably have a lot, but just if you can, try to narrow it down to one.
I can. I will tell you one that just really stays with me. It was a male client of mine's, and
Mhm.
he said to me one day, he said, "Gwendolyn, you helped me be a better father and husband."
Oh,
That
wow.
nearly took me out. I think I bawled for days.
Oh, I could see, yeah, I could see that.
He said, "You helped me be a better father and a
I
better
could see
husband."
that.
I was like, "Whoa." That's when the connection for me happened that this is so much deeper than just admin support, right?
I
It's
could
so
see
much
that.
bigger than that
Mhm,
because the things
mhm.
that we're supporting people on in their businesses are helping them be better fathers, better mothers, better wives, better husbands, because the time that they're getting back, that time freedom, they're now able to give to their family.
Reinvest. Yeah, I
That's
love that.
huge for me.
I love that.
That stays with me because it keeps me like, "Oh, there's a bigger reason why we do
Mm,
this."
I love that. Love
Yeah.
that. Love
That
that.
that is by far the most impactful one.
I love that. I could see that. Yeah, I could definitely see that. I mean, time is like a scarce resource. We can't get
Yeah,
that back, right? So
yeah,
you being in a position to give that time back to them by taking something off of their plate has got to be incredibly
yeah.
rewarding. I
And
love that.
it's such a stress reliever for them, right? Because you're giving them their time back, but then you're also taking the stress off of their mind because they're not worried about it. They know that things are gonna get done. They have a person they can trust with the thing that they've built, right?
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
Our
And that's
businesses,
scary.
like,
That
let's
could
be
be
honest, our
scary.
businesses are like our babies, right? And my
Yeah.
coach would tell me all the time, "Stop treating it like it's your baby, it's a grown-ass asset." She says that to me all the time. Forgive my language, but that's how
I
she
know.
gives it to me. And I'm like, "Okay, fine." But the reality of it is, it's like the blood, the sweat, the literal tears that we've put into building these things, and now you're saying, "Trust somebody else with it."
Oh, yeah. You know what? Now you just prompted another question. What should someone be looking for in a virtual admin expert
Oh.
because there's so many different conflicting pieces of information. You have so many as a client expectations. What
Yes.
should someone be looking for to know that they found the right person?
Yeah, you definitely wanna look for, I like to call it that synergy, right?
Mhm.
Do you guys have that, like, does it feel good? Do you feel like this is a person that you could essentially grow to trust? But you also wanna look for those tangible things. Are they responsive, right? Do they have great
Mm.
follow through? Test their skill. I cannot say this enough. Please test their skill because in this virtual space, people will tell you 1,000 things that they can do, and then they get to you and they're really just testing and experimenting on you. Test their skills, right? Because depending on where you are in your business determines if you need somebody that can jump in and like hit the ground running versus somebody that can jump in that you need to kind of train, spend a lot of time training, right? And bringing up to speed. So you want to test their skill set. You want to look for those soft skills. How do they treat people?
Mhm.
How do they talk to you? Right?
Yeah.
Ask them for some real world examples. They should be able to tell you on how they've handled situations, right? Look at how they
Mhm.
show up when they come to the interview. Super important, especially in the virtual space. People get very, very comfortable and they show up in a way that says, I would never put you in front of one of my clients.
Exactly. Yeah.
You want to look for those things. Are they dependable? Listen
Mhm.
to the language that they use when they're talking about you. Are they positive? Are they complaining about a previous client, a previous boss, a
Mhm.
previous work situation, right? Do they take accountability? That's huge. Ask them about when they've made a mistake and how they handle that. That is huge. Those are
Yeah.
all the things that you wanna look for.
I love that. That is a fantastic list. And I know the audience will probably soak that up too because sometimes it's difficult to figure out.
Yes.
First of all, when you're type A, all right, you don't want to delegate in the first place, right? And then you're like,
Right.
okay, it's like baby steps. Like I finally got to the point, well, okay, maybe, but
I
then
can let a little bit go.
a little bit, but then where do I go?
Yes.
What am I looking for? What are the things? So thank you so much for sharing that criteria because that's a good
Yeah,
point. That really is.
absolutely.
That's a
I'm
good
like
point.
you, like, it's a mutual thing, right?
Yes.
And they should be engaging with you. Do they show any interest? Are they asking you questions? Right?
Yeah,
Like,
'cause if it's one way, I would get nervous. I would get nervous if
very,
it's just one way,
very.
you know.
When they say, "I don't have any questions," I'm like, "Oh my. Okay, well, thank you."
To me, that's almost like, okay, that was a great combo. And we're done. I mean, it's just being realistic.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Well, you know what? It's so funny when I look at the calendar, we are just flying by with this year, right? So I ask all of my guests this question. If you had to choose one word to represent your goals for this year, what would it be and why?
Oh, one word. I would have to say fearless.
Ooh, okay. Okay.
Um, there are some big goals in my mind,
Okay.
and it's gonna take me stepping out of some of the comfort zones that I've created,
Mhm.
um, to make them happen. So,
Okay.
yeah, I gotta do a lot of kicking fear to the curb this year. So for me, they're like, I gotta be fearless if I'm gonna hit the target.
I love that. I love that. And so far, how has it felt to get outside of that comfort
Oh,
zone?
very
How is it?
uncomfortable.
Yes.
Very uncomfortable. Very uncomfortable.
Yes. Yep. I know. Hey, type A right here because I'm trying to work on some of that myself. So I get it.
I like to be in environments that I can control.
Yes, I get it. Totally get it. So when you said fearless, I'm like, whew, I should use that as my word too. But I just again, I'm fear of being fearless. So I'm trying to it's
Baby steps. It's
baby
fine.
steps. Baby
Am
steps.
I am I really gonna do this? Am I really gonna send that? Am I really gonna say this out loud? Yep.
Yeah. But you know what? Right on the other side of that fear is freedom.
Yeah.
That's what I've been reminding myself because I'm trying to kind of get
I
out of
love
that
that.
as well. And yeah, it's funny that you said fearless.
I think
So
I'm gonna put that next to my sticky note. I think I'm gonna put a sticky note with freedom on it.
yeah,
I like
I
that.
mean it really is because I it's been an interesting couple of years for me in the past, but it's I've noticed that on right on the other side is freedom. And I
Yeah,
just have to keep reminding
yeah,
myself of that. So yeah. Oh my goodness.
gotcha.
Well, I have thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. Last but not least, what is the best piece of advice that you have for women who want to start their own business?
Oh, the best piece of advice. There's so much. I think the most important thing that I would say to them is that your voice matters, your service
Mm,
matters, your product matters, like depending on what the business is, but it matters. And so go for it at full throttle, like, and make sure that you invest in some sort of community or
mhm,
coach to be along the journey with you. It's one of the things I wish I'd had done sooner
mhm.
rather than later was find a coach to help cut the learning curve, and a community of people who understood the challenges that I were going through. So that would be my advice to them.
I love that. I love that. Well, I have thoroughly enjoyed our conversation, and I know the audience has as well. If folks want to get in contact with you, how can they go about doing so?
Yes, so you can reach me across all social media. Our handle is your admin expert across the board. You can also go to our website, yourvirtualadminexpert.com, and reach us that way as well. Would love, love, love to connect.
I love that. Love that. I have thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. Gwendolyn, thank you so
I
much for
have
coming
as
on to the show.
well. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Thank you.